What's up, everybody? Today's Chalk Talk is going to be about recovery and some of the things that I think I come across on a daily basis with coaches and parents in particular. So, some I wrote down a big myth that I hear all the time. Well, he needed a day off, or the team needs a day off. Well, let's think about this. What what do these athletes do on their day off nowadays? They probably get in front of a TV or their phone or iPad or PlayStation or Xbox and sit and do nothing. And in my experience, it only prolongs the recovery rate. So giving them a day off can only be um, a bad thing for the athletes. I think in particular, this ends up being giving them a day off ends up being for the coaches more than it does the athletes, because they're always going. There's really no days off. They're always competing. They're always trying to get one up on the competition. So, but it's also important that days off don't do us any good. Um, Coaches, maybe, maybe not. So it's very important that we keep this mindset nowadays. Days off aren't very good for the athletes. You can always do something, especially if you have something in the schedule. You got a workout time or whatever it is. Having them hang out and do nothing is only detrimental to your team and your athletes. So it's really important that you stay on top of that and you regulate with some tips for recovery here, okay? So the number one thing that I'm gonna say, and it's very difficult for middle, high school, even college athletes, and professional athletes, if they're not mature enough to handle it. Sleep is the absolutely most important thing for recovery. It helps regulate your hormones it triggers the hormones for all the recovery that you need, lowers the cortisol levels so that you can get back into recovery mode, and it helps just about everything in your body. Now, that's the difficult part is how are you going to regulate that? So that's difficult. The only way that you can regulate that is just by educating the parents and educating the athletes on how important sleep is. Also, naps. Don't Naps are always a good, and there's a lot of great research about naps on the productivity levels of people, even business people, what it can do to refresh your mind and your body. So keep that in mind. So that's the number one thing. Number two thing is nutrition. Okay, nutrition, having a good, make sure that we're eating enough to be able to recover. We have some athletes in here that are extremely dedicated, but they're not doing what they need to be able to recover, and that's what kind of triggered this chalk talk. And it brings me back to a lot of memories that I have with coaches on some tips for recovery that I'll always give them. So I decided to kind of stick this out for you so that I can give it to everybody that can watch this. So carb protein diet and making sure that you're eating the right foods, and your supplementation. Let me say supplementation is exactly what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a supplement for the gaps in your diet. Okay, so if you're not getting enough protein, a good protein mix is good. If you're not getting enough carbs, which I doubt nowadays, but if you're not getting any carbs in your diet, or the kids are on the same diet, I've seen this, kids being on the same diet as their mom and dad, and their mom and dad aren't doing any carbs, and the kid comes to us and he's already toast right after warm-ups. He's gone. So it's very important that we stay on top of that, and then we coach them up on that stuff. So what can we do to help them? Well, we can have that stuff available. We can have the protein. We can have the chocolate milk. We can have all that stuff available for them to try to fill that gap. Branched chain amino acids, And here's some things I always recommend to athletes. Okay, fish oils. Fish oils are great for us overall, but it also decreases our inflammation levels in our body. So the inflammation being the soreness and delayed onset muscle soreness, all that stuff. We recommend usually 6 to 8 grams a day, depending on their body weight. Um, Probiotic. Many people don't recommend this. I do to all the athletes. Particularly, it affects your probiotics, and if you have bad probiotics, it affects your absorption levels. And your absorption is all the nutrition that you're getting through your diet and the supplements that you eat, so, or drink, or whatever it is. Make sure that you're on top of a probiotic because it can regulate, especially if you've been on antibiotics for a long period of time. Because I don't know very many athletes that are going to eat their amount of vegetables and kind of get all those probiotics nowadays in naturally. So it's important that we try to supplement those gaps so that they can stay nice and healthy. And then the branched chain amino acids, those that should be self-explanatory. Just make sure you're on top of that. Recommend those things, especially for those athletes that need those that have those gaps in their supplementation. And one thing I didn't put on here is turmeric. I might be pronouncing that way off of the pronunciation of turmeric, but that's a big one nowadays. They can help reduce inflammation in the body as well, just like fish oils can. So, and then the last one that's probably most important in nutrition is hydration. Hydration, we usually recommend at least half your body weight, if not more. If you're an athlete that sweats a lot, close to 75% of your body weight, or up to 75% of your body weight. Hydration, this is just water. I think Gatorade, Powerade, and all the sports drinks are overused nowadays. They have way too much sugar in them and can only affect your body in more of a negative way than it can a positive way. The only time you would do a sports drink is probably on a very long workout. I'm talking 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. We're coming up on a lot of summer workouts that last a long time. I've heard some coaches talking about, hey, we're going to be out there from 8 to 12 every day, 8 to 12:30 every day. So it's important that we can supplement, get those electrolytes back into the system as quickly as possible, because those athletes are going to need to recover. Remember, the quicker the athlete recovers, the better off, the stronger they're going to be, the edge that you can get on the competition just by keeping that nutrition on point is going to be in particular. And the nutrition is a heck of a lot easier to regulate than the sleep, because we do have supplementation. All right, so next is a team recovery day. Team recovery day sometimes is looked on as team yoga or whatever it is, Pilates. It can help the athlete recover a lot better than a day off can. So it's important that you try to keep the recovery days in the plan as much as possible, and make sure that you're assessing overtraining. That's important when it comes to recovery. Do your athletes need to recover? Are you staying on top of the assessments, and what are you actually assessing? Okay, sometimes we just have athletes come in here and do a vertical jump, and just to record 2 or 3 vertical jumps just to see where they're at and see what the relationship is between their vertical jump when they tested last and their vertical jump during like a workout week. That's important. And you can always ask the really true and faithful athletes how they're feeling today on a scale of 1 to 5. RPE test, just a verbal test can tell you a lot about how the athlete's feeling. Well, I'm not, I just don't have it in me today. And then you go and ask another true and faithful athlete what they think. And if you start getting a pattern there, that could help you kind of regulate some overtraining that you might be seeing, okay? Because overtraining is a big buzz term nowadays. Is make sure that you stay on top of that, because that inflammation level comes up and that makes sure that your injury rates go up as well. So staying on top of recovery and improving the recovery rates of your athletes is going to give you an edge on the competition. That's for sure. PNF stretching, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Make sure you stay on top of that. That's a great one that I have found has done awesome things to athletes' parasympathetic nervous system. It triggers that recovery. So doing PNF stretching, a team PNF is great. AIS, active isolation stretching, you can also do that as well for the teams. Those kind of go hand in hand. We usually put both of those together in a 45-minute to an hour session. So static stretching, also good, making sure that you try to regulate their breathing, which triggers recovery inside your nervous system, and that can trigger different hormones to kind of activate for that. So get them on some type of post-workout activated static stretching, just so they regulate their breathing. They regulate their breathing, that triggers your body starts to trigger their recovery. If you don't do that and you just have them sit down, then it doesn't become as natural as it needs to be. So you can actually trigger quicker recovery just by improving some static stretching or putting in 5-minute static stretching at the end of every workout. And then adding a hot or cold bath. Most people don't have access to a lot of this. I know a lot of people that do a cold bath, cryonic freezing, all that stuff. That has mixed research out there, but hot cold does have a lot of positive research out there. So involving a hot and then going from hot to cold to hot can actually help those free radicals get out of the joints and the muscles so that you can recover a lot quicker. And then compression and vibration, these are things that most of the time we don't have a lot of control of. Compression post-workout, that actually helps free the swelling up in our muscles, and it does the exact same thing as the hot cold does. There's a lot of great research on compression and even vibration nowadays, which is another hard thing to get a hold of if you're not some elite Division I program. So stay on top of that. Recovery for your athletes can get you a great edge on all the stuff that you're doing. If you have any tips, anything that I missed out, make sure you post them on the bottom. I'd love to hear from you. See you next time.